The Yak-15P is a rank 5 battle rating 6.3 fighter for Russia and is actually the first jet you would be able to research in the Yak branch of the Russian tree, and in my opinion, it's absolutely fantastic. I know that this is generally a pretty unpopular opinion in the War Thunder community, because for as long as I can remember, people have generally referred to this aircraft as one of the worst jets in the game alongside the HE-162 Salamander. While this is true relative to the performance of some of the other early jets players have access to, I feel the Yak-15 is a bit underestimated considering it sits at a battle rating of 6.3, which means you fly against late World War II props most of the time. Before we dive further into the Yak-15's role in War Thunder, let's talk about the aircraft itself. After World War II, Soviet Russia decided it was time to begin developing their future fighters, and the future was jet power. The Yak-15 is really just a late version Yak-3, but instead of a piston engine, it uses a reverse-engineered German jet turbine engine from, I believe it was actually the same engine that came on the Me-262s. And this is exactly why it has such unique flight characteristics. This might stray away from my point a bit, but I read that the only other jet that was successfully repurposed as a jet fighter was the Saab 21 series, which I found quite interesting. As far as real-life flight performance goes, Yak-15 pilots reported the aircraft relatively easy to fly, but being an experimental first attempt at a jet fighter, it had a plethora of technical issues, but that's kind of expected for that era. The Yak-15P in War Thunder has some very unique characteristics when compared to the aircraft it flies against. Unlike other jets, it has a pretty low dive speed due to its airframe and, of course, the early jet technology of the era. But you trade off that speed for some crazy maneuverability, and I've been able to out-dogfight just about all of the late war fighters and all of the post-war super props as well. This aircraft also has some great horizontal energy retention, which adds to its dogfighting capability. Even with its lackluster engine performance, it still manages to hold a sustained dogfight really well, and is precisely why I feel the Yak-15 is so underestimated by your opponents. It catches people off guard. So many players just assume because it's a low performance jet that it will be no problem outperforming it, which is almost never the case. Problems begin to arise when people know their aircraft, which sadly isn't that often nowadays. The aircraft the Yak-15 faces can absolutely make easy work of a Yak-15 if they just play carefully and stick with their team. One-on-one, the Yak-15 wins every time, but as soon as more aircraft are introduced into the mix, the Yak-15 will suffer, which is why I think you need some serious situational awareness with this aircraft. In a one-on-one fight, all you have to do is dodge the initial engagement, and then you should be on the enemy's tail pretty much immediately, and a lot of the time you can get shots off before they pull out of range. This usually leads to your enemy panicking and losing speed, which will get you caught back up to them pretty quickly if you didn't kill them with that initial burst. Oh yeah, and speaking of shooting, the armament on the Yak-15 gives me quite mixed feelings. On one hand, I love Russian 23s, and on the other hand, you only get one 23mm cannon with only 60 rounds of ammunition. The Yak-15 requires absolutely perfect trigger discipline if you want to get some high kill games, which, to be honest, I didn't get many of in my time playing this aircraft. I think I had like one 5-kill game, which is good, but other than that, it was pretty much consistent 3-kill games. I wanted to do commentary on a single match, but because of this and the fact that the commentary would be boring, I ended up deciding not to do it. I felt it would just be me saying,
"Alright, it's time to turn. We are now going to turn. Alright, we're going to turn. Alright, let's turn to left. Alright, let's make that a turn. Okay, so now we're going to turn. Okay, there's a guy coming up high. I think we're going to turn."
I'm sorry, that was terrible. Alright, so what should you expect if you decide to use this thing? Well, first off, if you're an average player, expect to get clapped for the first few matches. If you stick with it long enough to get used to it, I think you will begin to love it as much as I do. It's almost like you need a sort of passive aggression. It's just deciding on when to be aggressive and when to be passive is what's so important with this aircraft. Oh yeah, I completely forgot to go over what I like to do in a match. So, normally I side climb. I know it's a meme, but it's what you do. You can do what you gotta do to do well. So, normally I'll climb off of the side a bit until I'm about 2 to 3 kilometers. God, I feel like I swear I say that in every video. But climb up to the side a bit, I get about 2 to 3 kilometers off the ground, and then try to reassess the situation, where the enemies are, see if they're diving down yet, and if they are, that's my cue to go on into the fight. Normally by the time I get towards the mass of players that are in the center of the map, there's still usually 1 or 2 players still sitting up high and waiting for opportunistic kills, and that's exactly what I like to go for. Remember how earlier I was saying this thing catches people off guard? Well, this is exactly how I like to do it. When players are up high and they're going to try and dive on you, they're going to do a typical boom and zoom pass, and when they're in that boom part, you're trying to dodge those bullets and then get right on their tail as quickly as you can, which with this aircraft you can do that pretty quickly before they're way out of range, and you can get some shots off, and a lot of time it'll result in kills. But if you are going to play this way, you better hit those shots because, like I said earlier, you only get 60 rounds of ammunition, which is not a lot. And I know these guns are pretty good, and sometimes they can result in one-shot kills. You gotta hit it, you gotta hit those shots to get those kills. Okay, so Yak-15P, should you research it and buy it? I think so. I really like it. I find it really fun, but I'm kind of a weirdo who finds weird planes fun. I'm not sure if because it's the hyper maneuverability this thing has, or just because it's a pretty challenging aircraft to consistently do well in, but I really liked it, and I think you will too if you actually give it some time and thought. I don't know many other aircraft at this 6.0, 7.0 range that can casually pull 13 Gs no problem. Unless the piston engine yaks can, but I haven't flown those in a long time, so I might be completely wrong about that, I don't know. Anyway, to wrap things up, the Yak-15P is an absolutely rewarding aircraft to fly if you get used to it. It's a monster at low altitude if you can get your enemies to lose their speed, and especially so because a lot of those enemies do that without even you really having to do anything, they'll just start turning with you. Alright, that's gonna do it for this video. Sorry it took so long to get this one out, life is busy, and I don't have enough time. 24 hours is not enough time in a day, so I hope you enjoyed. Hit that like button, subscribe if you liked the video and you want to see more, and on that, I'll see you next time. Peace.